Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Robert Phoenix here once again, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas, also known as the Hill Country. How is everybody today? We are now up and running on YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're a little bit on the late-ish side today. Just a little bit on the late-ish side. That's okay. Better late than never. And we're here to kind of get down and get into the topics of the day, which of course are going to be centered around the coronavirus and more of the Kobe stuff, which I keep finding more things. And the Kanye West connection is fairly interesting as it relates to Kobe as well. And we'll get into some of that today. Let's see, we've got one person watching now. How about that? We'll get some more people showing up here, hopefully. Let me adjust my sleeves. Let me roll up my sleeves. Hey, Magic Mika. What's going on, Magic Mika? Welcome to the show. There we go. 1-0 Dragon. 1-0 Dragon. Oh, yes. Helicopter. Helicopter 4-1 bomb. Yeah, we're going to look at some of the helicopter bomb footage. That's right. Hey, Judy. Good to see you. There's Joe Dimitri. What's happening, Joe Dimitri? Joe, you recently purchased the course, so you are eligible to come to the webinar. I'll have more stuff with the webinar. If you purchase the course within the last 6 months, shoot me an email. I'll have a class this weekend and next weekend. If you can't make this weekend, you can make next weekend, 90-minute webinar, kind of an update on the course, getting your questions together. If you've got questions about astrology, if you've got questions about the course itself, I'll be able to answer them. We'll do 2 of these, one tomorrow and one next Saturday as well. What's going on, Glenn? There's Danielle M. This makes hey, Danielle. Nice to see you. There's my man, Steve, the man with the wrench. And then there's Charles. Hey, Charles. Maurice is here with me. Hey, say hi. All right, Maurice. Cool. Hi, Dawn. Yes, would love that. Yeah, so I'm not advertising it on my website, but I put it out on Facebook, and I know some of you watch the show. But I'll have a 90-minute webinar tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then I'm going to have another one next week as well. And these are for people that bought the course in the last 6 months. They'll have 2 webinars. So some of the ground, some of the territory will be similar and some will be different. We'll have a number of different questions. There's Christine Mose. Hello, Christine. Did you know Kobe's accident is not in his chart, but his daughter's? Well, that's interesting because I was looking around Kobe's chart and it was you're right, Lynn. It was kind of difficult, but there's some other things going on with Kobe that aren't just Kobe related and not Gianna related as well. And there's other people again, theoretically on that helicopter. And a lot of people say, well, these are people that are easily replaced. It happens all the time. I don't think it really happens all the time, but it does happen. I looked at 9/11 to see if there were children on supposedly children on those planes that supposedly crashed on 9/11. And I think there were supposedly, again, there's that word. I think there were 4 kids on those planes. Now, my theory is that the people that were on those planes were taken off those planes, and that they were either recirculated and moved into other positions, or a lot of them were probably operative level. That's what I think. I think they were operative level, and they were going to be shuffled around or shuffled into something else, or so. A long time ago, I used to go to this website's forum called Let's Roll, and the Let's Roll forums were quite interesting. And I haven't gone there for a long time, but this was around 2011, where I was really deeply, 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 deeply immersed in 9/11 and trying to find out everything I could about 9/11. The Hollow Tower theory and a lot of the stuff that went along with that. And what they did, and it's very hard to find now, but they had a um, the passenger list, like when CNN came out, and then they had the passenger list, and they looked at all the people that were supposedly on the plane, and they were like linking the passenger list up with people that looked like a person, but they weren't that person. You know the game, right? Like there was this one guy that looked just like Ari Fleischer. It was really weird, like a whole lot of high strange with the passenger list. And so I do think that they can remove people. And in that case, I think it was fairly strategic, and or some of those people on those planes never really existed to begin with. But we do know that these people that were on Kobe's helicopter did exist. They had lives, and they had people that were connected to them, family left behind. I'm going to get into some of that today, and I'm going to get into the Kanye Kobe connection, which is very, very unusual. There was an opposition in her chart to the Saturn Pluto conjunction. Yeah. So I think when we get into like helicopter death, okay, or when we get into group death, I think when we're looking at, I think we're looking at an amalgam of charts. So, yeah. If Gianna had that opposition in her chart and some angles to it, that could quite possibly indicate that. But it would also be sort of incumbent to look at the other people on the helicopter to see what else was going on with them astrologically as well. The interesting thing about Gianna is that her name is essentially the same name as Giannis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is supposed to be sort of the next star of the NBA. And I've got a theory about the stars of the NBA, and it's like the astrological cycles of the NBA. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is the next star in line. And of course, Gianna, his daughter, shares the same name. I'll lay it on for you. People keep saying, "Oh, I want you to be on my show." We do a basketball podcast, and we talk about certain things or astrology and sports. And most of the time, they don't want to touch me because I think I'm too dark. Anyway, but I'll give you my astrological sort of procession of the ages through the NBA. So the player that really changes the NBA, the modern era, is Lou Alcindor. Now we know him as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he becomes this cipher for the modern NBA. And Kareem was in Aries, so we start there at Aries. Then the next player to change the NBA in a significant way is Dr. J. Julius Erving, who happens to be a Pisces. In fact, he was in a movie called The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. And wearing very Piscean uniforms and everything. It was like the coronation. It was the coronation of Dr. J, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. The coronation of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the Bruce Lee movie Game of Death, where Bruce Lee has to go through all these different levels of fighting in this one structure, this one building, and the last level that he's fighting on, he's fighting against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and of course that's a very Aries occupation, or it's a very Aries kind of manifestation: war, conflict, clashing. And it's kind of wild watching Bruce Lee fight Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is like doing these side kicks, and he's covering 20 feet when he does a side kick. It's kind of mind blowing. Anyway, so we have after that, we have, of course, the Aquarian, and the Aquarian is Michael Jordan. Because when you get into the bird magic era, it's almost like there's this interesting time where neither one of them becomes, there's always this debate, bird or magic, bird or magic, bird, but there's never a debate about Michael Jordan. And Julius Erving was the player that popularized the dunk, the slam dunk. He won the slam dunk contest. So Julius Erving is this Piscean character. Then we go to Michael Jordan. He has a movie, of course, and his movie is Space Jam. And he's the Aquarian. And with Michael Jordan, we bring in the age of Nike and the age of Saturn. And Saturn was the original ruler of Aquarius. So there you go. There's your math. And then the astromath. And then after that, who do we have? Now, Kobe theoretically fits in there, but he's more along the lines of the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson discussion, because whenever you, and I watch a lot of sports talk, and Kobe's never mentioned about, well, who's the greatest? Who's the greatest? He's not in there. He's not in the GOAT territory, although he did include Jerry Rice in his Nike commercial when he did his Kobe system. And Jerry Rice, obviously the GOAT, greatest of all time. So, but there's also GOAT symbolism there as well. So then we come to the next great. Theoretically, the next luminary in the NBA, who is LeBron James, the king, and he's a Capricorn, and we reach the apex. And what's interesting about the wheel is that it looks like a basketball. I mean, that's, so we have LeBron James. And LeBron James is sort of the height and the apex of the sport. And Kobe was the king of LA, though, with the Lakers. And now he's no longer the king. I'm going to read something to you about that a little bit later. Very, very interesting stuff. And then now what's the next sign? The next sign is Sagittarius. And here's where we get into the discussion about Giannis Antetokounmpo, who happens to be a Sagittarius, and he's now being crowned as the next great NBA player. They're not crowning Kawhi. Kawhi doesn't fit. Kawhi is a Cancer. He doesn't fit the astrological procession of the ages inside of the NBA. And even one could even make a case on some occult level that Gianna, which is the feminine of Giannis, would be sort of the sacrifice in some ways for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which would be kind of the Sagittarian luminary in the chart of the NBA. Anyway, just some interesting kind of astrological shit to think about. So I want to get into the coronavirus, because that's obviously kind of a big deal. And there, again, I'm not here to sell any fear porn, but look, man, I'm a Virgo and Scorpio rising, and my relocated chart is Virgo ascendant. So you're going to get a dose of Virgo today. And I'm not here to spread fear, but you better stay aware. You better be aware of the consequences. Now, you may not get sick. You may avoid getting any kind of a flu or coronavirus, but I'm going to tell you what, right now, that's not going to affect, you're not getting sick is the least that you have to worry about. Okay? Or you're getting sick, which, could be challenging. Let's put it that way. But it's the least that you have to worry about. The biggest issue we have to worry about now is the production cycle in China. Now, that is big. That's huge. And if the production cycle of China slows down, stops, grinds to a halt, then guess what's going to happen? The products are not going to flow. Now, we've got warehouses that are full of goods that have been produced in China. So they're not going to run out anytime soon. But if we extend this thing out for another couple months and they're not back up to production, then things can get tricky. And there are things also, China is one of the major manufacturers of drugs that come into this country. And I'm not talking about illicit drugs. I'm talking about pharmaceutical drugs. They're produced in China. And where do you think fentanyl comes from? So if you're somebody who's on prescriptions and you have meds and they're not coming through the way that they've been pipelined into the country with, that's another really challenging factor. What if we got a bunch of people who are, scrambling around, don't have their meds, whatever the meds are? I mean, you got to factor that into things. Now, there's a number of different um, factors and things that are popping up that we got to pay attention to. I'm going to go through some of these now. Most of you are probably aware of it. If not, well, you're going to be informed. You're going to be aware of it now. So, what do we have here? Oh, it looks like patients can get reinfected. Lovely. Okay, this is one of the big headlines here. This is kind of the topper, which you want to be able to pay attention to. This is from CNBC. Hold on a second. U.S. airlines suspend flights to mainland China as coronavirus spreads. This is a big deal. American, United, and Delta, those are the three biggies, announced they're suspending service to mainland China. That's it. Those are the three biggies. Now, I'm sure there's Cathay Pacific or, other lesser airlines, Singapore Air. I don't know who has the rights to the air routes to China, but these three are significant. And they're like, now the pilots union was getting ready to sue American. And American just decided to shut it down. Let's read this. You know what that means? That means the stocks are going to go down. In fact, I don't know if you caught this, but there was a huge loss with Facebook as the markets opened. What was it, yesterday or today? Huge, massive. Now, speaking of massive, guess who's here? I've got to prepare for the king. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Come on. There you go. There he is. He ducked out for a while this morning. He and Rosie were having some serious cover action today. I've got one of those covers that have the warm and fuzzies on them, The cats like that. They were having some major cover action this morning. How you feel, buddy? Do you have a message for your fans out there who can barely see you? Should we get a little shot of Jasper? There he is. Got a message for your fans? Got any cat wisdom you want to share? All right, let's get back into this. Delta United American on Friday announced they would halt service to mainland China as the rapid spread of coronavirus and government warnings against travel to the country. There we go. Large U.S. corporations, from Apple to Ford to Kraft Heinz, have restricted their employees' China business travel or scaled back operations because of the outbreak. United, which has the most service to China of the U.S. airlines, said starting February 6th, it would suspend flights from its hubs to Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu until March 28th. Okay, that's pretty significant. That's 2 months. That is 2 months versus of non-travel. Now you can say, okay, well, it's fear porn, fear doom, that they're all in on it. There's a great big conspiracy and that none of it is actually happening. Fine, you can go in that direction. You can go in any direction you like with this. You can pop up the Bill Gates stuff and you can pop that up and say, well, it's all Bill Gates and he's got the patent and everybody who is a member of the elite, they've got the antidote and we don't, and there's gonna be a vaccine. I mean, you can run all those scenarios. You can run them all. At the end of the day, what are you going to be dealing with? Are you going to be looking at your TV screen and say that's bullshit, while the product and distribution and supply chain grinds to a halt? Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to deal with this, real or imagined. And I've covered some of this before. I'll cover some of it again today. And there's a very good chance that it'll be a blip on the radar. I don't think it's going to be a blip on the radar for China, though. I think something very serious is happening with China. All right, let me continue. What else do we have here? Okay. United, which has the most service to China. We said that March 28th. Until that date, we'll continue to operate select flights to help ensure our U.S. based employees as well as customers have options to return home. Well, you better quarantine those people. United said in a statement the Chicago based airline will continue to operate a once daily San Francisco Hong Kong flight. As always, the safety of our customers and employees is at our highest priority, and we will continue to monitor the situation as it develops. Okay, that's not really smart. Hong Kong has just closed its schools until the end of March. Americans said Friday it would immediately suspend. So we have America suspending through March 27th, March 28th. American flies to China from Dallas Fort Worth and LA International, but the carrier will continue to fly to Hong Kong. So I guess Hong Kong is supposedly okay. Delta said it would halt China service starting February 6th through April 30th, but will continue to operate the service until then. What? Starting February 6th. Okay, so, all right. Until then, to ensure customers looking to exit China have options. So they got to get people out of there, which is why they're extending their service. Got to be very, very cautious. But this is a good start around being able to, at the very least, look at how we can limit exposure of people that are traveling. And we already have a number of cases that have shown up here in the States. Stocks plunge Friday. See, this is what we're talking about right there. This is what we have to be concerned with. These aspects are potentially more catastrophic than the actual virus itself. It's the economic impact. Stocks plunged Friday on concerns over the increasing impact of the coronavirus, with airlines down more sharply than the broader market. In early afternoon trading, Delta was off 2.2%, United was down 3.4%, American shares were lower 3.3%. The increasing isolation of China in the business world is echoed in the Trump administration's actions and rhetoric. The president himself has characterized the outbreak as largely a Chinese problem that is under control in the United States. Okay. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, meanwhile, said this week that the coronavirus could actually be positive for American manufacturing and jobs as companies reevaluate their supply chains. Okay. Never spoil an opportunity to use a crisis to your advantage, according to Rahm Emanuel. I mean, that's all well and good, Wilbur Ross. And it probably might be a good idea for U.S. companies to resume manufacturing in the United States anyway. But to be able to build manufacturing plants, hire people, train them, hook them up to the distribution and retail chain and cycle, that could take some time unless they've already been doing this, which might be the case actually. Like that might actually be the case. You never know with these guys, right? They could have known. Oh, we got this ready to go. You just let us know when you drop that coronavirus over in China. Some airline employees say it's easier if there's an outright ban on China travel from the U.S. government because it provides greater clarity and makes planning easier compared with frequently changing schedules according to. I would agree. I think Trump needs to step up and say, yeah, it's a China problem. If it's a China problem, then the China problem can come to the United States. I'd say put a freeze on any travel to and from China and be government mandated. Now, of course, they could bring people and fly people in there. I mean, let's be honest, right? If they wanted to drop a bunch of infected coronavirus people in, they could do it. They do it all the time. They bring in people from other countries, and they're not really checking them for any kinds of diseases or viruses or plagues. They just pick them up, plop them down, hand them a debit card and say, "Here you go. Here's your apartment. Here's your EBT. Here's your debit card." So I got a text from Lisa, who's a friend of the show. It's a couple of weeks ago, and she's following this guy on Facebook. I think his name is Larry Hendricks or something like that. And I think this guy was in North Austin, and I could actually validate like part of his experience around what he shared or what came through his Facebook page, and I'll share that in a second. So apparently he was at a store, grocery store, maybe it was HEB or something, or anyway, he was there were a group of Congolese that were there, and they were hanging out at the store, and they were all buying food, and there were significant numbers of them. So apparently he struck up a conversation with one of the guys in line who spoke English, and he asked the guy, "Hey, where are you from?" He says, "Oh, well, we're from the Congo." And he said, "Well, who brought you here? How'd you get here?" And he said, "Satan brought us here." And what he meant by Satan was the Pope and the Catholic Church. That was their code for the Pope, was Satan. He said Satan. So the Catholic Church was moving people, these refugees, into the U.S. Of course, that's what they're doing. And then he went on to tell this guy that they're given $45,000 with these cards. They're also given housing. So they're given $45,000. They're given housing. And then he said, they told us that our president is going to be Michael Bloomberg. Isn't that interesting? So my experience with North Austin, and this was, back in like probably around 2015, maybe. I'd say 2015. I remember being in North Austin, 2015, 2016, being in North Austin with my kid, and we were at a taqueria, and there was this big, lanky guy, could not speak a lick of English, obviously a refugee, and he had a card with him and everything. I didn't talk to him, but this was in that 2015. So North Austin has been kind of a landing spot, shall we say, and the number of halal markets that have opened up in North Austin is shocking, to say the least. So I just thought I'd share that with you, a little tidbit, that little anecdote. But this is happening now. This is pretty real, and it's the distribution and the supply chain that I think is going to be the affected the most when it comes to what we're experiencing now. Let me give you a few more Corona headlines. Get back here. Okay, I got some breaking news for you. So it looks like the impeachment trial is over. I'm gonna just bring this up here in case you are like, I'm so fucking bored with this dog and pony show. But it'll be interesting to see what the next move on the Democrats is. There was a picture of Nancy Pelosi last night. She looked really bad. So it's over. Murkowski to vote against new witnesses. Senator Lisa Murkowski, that's Alaska, will not support new witnesses in the impeachment trial. Murkowski's vote against new witnesses ensures Republicans will be able to block all new witnesses in a 51-49 vote and move to acquit Trump. There you go. The House chose to send articles of impeachment that are rushed and flawed. I carefully considered the need for additional witnesses and documents to cure the shortcomings of its process, but ultimately decided that I will vote against considering motions to subpoena, the Alaska Republicans said in a statement. And a huge blow to Democrats Senator Lamar Alexander announced Thursday night he would be voting against new witnesses. So he flipped. Rhinos, Romney, and Collins were the only two Republican senators who announced they would vote in favor of new witnesses. Collins better watch out for her seat. Romney, who gives a shit? Romney's one of those guys that's like, he's like mold. He never goes away. He always finds some new position somewhere, governor, senator. He just never goes away. The Senate, however, is reportedly extending the trial into next Wednesday. The State of the Union is scheduled for next Tuesday, so the Senate is purposely pushing for the president's acquittal until after the SOTU address. Okay. Until after it. Interesting. Now, I think this is while this is good, and we'll draw an end to this continued sham. On the other hand, it also limits the ability and the potential to subpoena witnesses that might have been connected to the Bidens, connected to the Obama administration, and even Hillary Clinton. So this thing kind of goes both ways. Like if they could have gotten those people up there and started talking to them and started to untangle those knots, that would have been the equivalent of a bit of a swamp drain. But we're not going to see that now. And which means that both sides have basically said we're going to throw in the towel, and we're going to call the presentation of any new witnesses or material, we're going to call it a day. It's over. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do for the next few days. And Rand Paul got real close to the third rail when he asked John Roberts, who apparently is really compromised. So there's some stuff. There's a John Roberts that appeared on the Epstein manifest. But there's also another John Roberts who's a media guy. He's, talking head guy. Hey. So there's a John Roberts on. So there's this idea that John Roberts is compromised. And the most people believe he's compromised because he adopted, I think it was two Irish kids. And apparently you can't adopt Irish kids outside of Ireland. Can't do it. But he found some loophole or something, and he's got these two. He essentially kind of circumvented the law. Gee, imagine that. So he's got these two Irish kids, and apparently that's been kind of held over him, that he broke the law. There's also the potential of the Epstein stuff. And, Roberts is creepy. He was appointed by Bush, but he was more than happy to flub the swearing-in ceremony of Obama. It was pathetic, man. You go back and you watch that tape, they're snickering and giggling and laughing, and Obama can't follow him. It's just, you got to be kidding me. It's just ridiculous. So they have to redo it. And they have to go beneath the White House and do it all over again. And by the way, that was during a Mercury retrograde. Obama got sworn in on his first term during a Mercury retrograde. And, rumor has it that they use this Masonic Bible. I've never seen a Masonic Bible before. I don't know what a Masonic Bible looks like. I don't know what's inside of a Masonic Bible, but that was the word on the street. And that's one of the reasons why it happened, because they didn't want him to swear on the Holy Bible. And that certainly promulgated his high-ranking Antichrist status during that period of time. Okay, let's see what else is happening with the coronavirus. I just wanted to bring that news for the impeachment just broke. I want to bring that up to your attention. Let's see what else here. Oh yeah, here's the Facebook story. Another CNBC story. So the markets are taking a plunge dive. Facebook is just like massive whale on the markets. And here we go. Facebook closes down 6%, wiping out more than $30 billion in market value. Think about that. Facebook lost $30 billion of fake money. I'm not shedding a tear for Mark Zuckerberg. The decline comes after Facebook reported the 51% rise in expenses. Yeah, they got to pay all those people, though, that are scouring their pages looking for reasons to block you, ban you, or suspend you for an indefinite period of time. Even the implementation of bots is expensive, right, Jasper? Yep. So Facebook stock closed down 6.1% after reported fourth quarter earnings Wednesday. The drop erased more than $30 billion from the social media's giant market cap. So could they take a $30 billion hit? That's the question. I mean, in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter because Facebook is subsidized by the government, just like Tesla is. So they could have a really bad quarter and it really won't matter all that much. In addition to the increase, but it does impact the market in general. So that part is kind of significant. $30 million is $1 billion. Believe it or not, it sounds like a lot, but as long as DARPA and as long as the alphabet agencies want to continue to scour information from Facebook, they'll keep it up and running. And when they're done, when they have all the information they need, Facebook will go away. And that's when you need to be a bit concerned. In a note to investors Thursday, Pivotal Research Group, it reduced its rating from buy to hold on those advertising concerns. Pivotal lowered its price target to 215 from 245, so they've lost about $30 on the share price. The slowdown, particularly in the U.S., is far greater than we expected and sounds likely to persist. Those privacy-related expenses, that's what I was talking about, and advertising headwinds are expected to continue throughout 2020. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said on company's earnings call Wednesday that privacy will be a focus for the company this year. Oh. Gee, thanks. Privacy means censorship too, by the way. That's one of those Orwellian code words, right? Privacy means censorship. Privacy means surveillance. Facebook still delivered a beat on the top of the bottom lines of its earnings. Billionaire Ray Dalio has two pieces of advice for the average investor. I wonder what that advice is. Okay, let's get more into Corona. I just wanted to bring that because I talked about it. Here's an interesting. There are all these theories. There are all these competing theories. So one of the theories is that, and it's not really it's not a theory, but one of the things that has come through on the Corona front is that there were these two women who were working up in Canada, and Canada, apparently they snatched a strain of the coronavirus out of Canada and brought it back to Wuhan. I'm trying to find that story now, if I can bring it to you. Then there's a theory that this is really affecting China. It's a bioweapon that's been intended for China and specifically targeting more Asians, and particularly Asian males, than other sexes and or genotypes. It's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think that they can certainly figure out how certain viruses are connected and affect only certain haplogroups. And I've been talking about this for a while. that if you're a particular haplogroup, like for instance, like Tay-Sachs, Tay-Sachs seems to be connected to supposedly, theoretically, Jewish people, right? Sickle cell anemia, again, more African American, right? So there are already um, uh, diseases and or um, what's the word I'm looking for? Not, I wouldn't call Tay-Sachs a disease disorder. So there are disorders that are associated with certain genotypes, and those genotypes associated with certain so-called races, right? Haplogroups. So it's not impossible to have genetically driven haplogroup viruses that could affect one group of people and not affect another group of people. I mean, it's there's a precedent there. And when I was really getting into my research around Morgellons back in 2008, 2009, 2010, one of the things that I found whenever I would see like these indications of Morgellons would be who had them, and the majority of the people that I saw that had the so-called Morgellons symptoms had happened to be so-called Caucasian or white. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And it wasn't all. It wasn't every single case, but you'd look at examples. It's just like when I was looking into the fluoride stuff, and I was looking at fluorosis, and I was told that that fluorosis is worse with the Latino community and the so-called Black or African American community. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was looking for an ad to do it like, well, this is what happens when your teeth don't drink fluoridated water. This is what happens to your teeth when you drink fluoridated water. So I wanted some really good fluorosis pictures. And again, I was kind of shocked and blown away. It's like, oh wow, look at that, because you could see the amount of melanin around the mouth and the face. It's like, well, this is terrible. So the statistic where fluorosis seems to impact a certain group more than another was true. So we know that this can happen, and certain groups can be affected more than others. And of course, it can target viruses to certain groups. So this idea that it could be a very targeted bioweapon towards the Asian population, specifically China, that's not out of the question at all. And Twitter, it never ceases to amaze me, because now I'm reading that that these viruses are racist. I swear to God, they're racist. This one guy was saying, well, Ebola is only connected to Black people, and coronavirus is only connected to Chinese and Asian people. So viruses are racist. Again, I'm just Twitter flips my wig in a lot of ways. So that's another kind of vector in this whole schema. Now, the other thing that I was thinking about as well is how, if this is going to continue to be an issue, then we're really looking at, in terms of like infectious rate and time and spreading and all that stuff. And I've seen models, by the way, independent models. These are not models coming out of the WHO or anything like that. These are people that are, pretty sharp and have their own kind of virology backgrounds. Anyway, we could be looking at sometime here, right around June. Maybe June, maybe late May. That's when the nodes shift, by the way, going into Gemini. So if that's the case, then you're going to have people out on whoever's going to be the nomination for the Democrats. I don't think it's going to matter. I think you're going to be looking at, if there is an election, and there's my asterisk. If there is an election, it'll be essentially whoever the Democrats decide to run. And they're looking at Bernie. Clearly, Elizabeth Warren is just fucking off her rocker. I got to show you this. I don't know if you guys have seen this about Elizabeth Warren. I mean, these people are they're just nuts. She's a nutbag. I have to say, she's just a full-on nutbag. She's got that Sun-Uranus conjunction in Cancer. You got to see this. When I read this morning, it was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm just using Breitbart because this story is in a number of different places. Elizabeth Warren says transgender child must approve education secretary. Really? You've got, so who is she going to get? Desmond? Is Desmond going to be able to approve the education secretary? I don't think Desmond is trans, though. I think he's just a drag queen or a drag princess. Democratic candidate, Senator Elizabeth Warren, told attendees at a town hall in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Sunday, that if she's elected president, her education secretary will have to be approved by a transgender child. Should we hear the audio on this thing? Let me activate audio here. We are living in a weird world, let me tell you. Here we go. Let's see if this is the audio on this thing.
It has to be someone who's taught in a public school. Hello? And part two, because it came from a young trans person who asked about a welcoming community. And I said, it starts with a Secretary of Education who has a lot to do with where we spend our money, with what gets advanced in our public schools, with what the standards are. And I said, I'm going to have a Secretary of Education that this young trans person interviews on my behalf. And only if this person believes that our Secretary or Secretary of Education nominee is who is committed to creating a welcoming environment, a safe environment, and a full educational curriculum for everyone, will that person actually be advanced to be Secretary of Education?
I can't believe that shit. I mean, she's just totally pandering here. She's totally pandering. She's going to give one of the highest offices in this country tasked with creating a program to manipulate and brainwash the youth of America. She's going to give that power over to a trans teen or a trans kid to interview them. Oh, I approve. I approve. Why don't you just make the fucking trans teen the Secretary of Education? Skip the interview process. This woman is completely nuts. She's nuts. Dangerous, unhinged. When a supporter told Warren public schools need to teach more about LGBTQ history and sex education, the Massachusetts senator replied her education secretary would have to be hired by a transgender child. I'm speechless. I'm speechless. States should focus on funding public schools, not private ones, especially not ones that maintain anti-LGBTQ policies. We must ensure every kid, especially LGBTQ kids, can get a high-quality public education. I'll tell you what, why don't you just start an entire school system for LGBTQ kids? How about that? You can just educate the heck out of them, give them the best freaking education in the world. Why don't you do that? This is just ridiculous. I'm sorry. She's nuts. She's totally nuts. This is what I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. This is somebody who's supposed to be taken seriously to run for president of the United States. She'll never get it. She'll not get it. She won't get it. I'm surprised she's stayed in the race this long. She's embarrassing. I'm sorry. And you have the other embarrassment is Biden. And there was a video earlier in the week where there was a supporter of Biden. He was talking to him, and Biden, he was asking, like, what do you plan on doing? You know, what are you going to do with these things and these things and this thing? And he was not confrontational. He was looking to Joe Biden, his candidate, to be president. And what is he going to do? How's he going to represent? And Biden said, maybe I'm not the candidate for you. Maybe you should go vote for somebody else. You never do that. You never do that. In a weird way, I admire his get off my lawn candor, but you just don't do that. I mean, he totally demoralized that guy. And this is the best and the brightest that's, being propped up. If I was a Democrat, I'd be totally embarrassed. Totally. Then you got PDG, Peter Buttigieg. He's still around. And of course, he sounds the most intelligent and has the biggest vocabulary. He's multilingual. Apparently, he plays piano as well. So if the presidential gig doesn't work out and the mayorship doesn't work out, he can always get a job playing at a piano bar and subsidizing his wages. So there's Pete. But again, I mean, who is he? What does he stand for? Yeah. And then there's Bernie. And I think Bernie's the most dangerous man in the room for those guys. I'm not a huge Bernie guy, but according to Joe Rogan, at least he stood for his principles and he's been standing up for them for a long time. And we know where we stand with Bernie, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but those principles are kind of flawed, right? There's one thing to be said for being consistent. And there's another thing for being known or seen as or standing for something that's consistently stupid. And I'm not saying that the system that we have is great. There's a ton of inequity in our system. The rich just keep getting massively more rich. But there's another way to go about doing it. And the way that I would go about doing it is dismantling the Fed. Dismantling the Fed and beginning to get back onto a different money standard. This is why Ron Paul's presidency was important, or his run. And of course, the press wasn't going to give him any love or any shine. And the second time he ran, he was just running to keep the ideas circulating in the public marketplace. Ron Paul's biggest problem is that he looked like Ron Paul. The presidency, unfortunately, for better or worse, is also a charisma contest. It helps if you're related to Richard II, too, by the way, apparently. That most presidents, or if not all, have some biological or genealogical connection to Richard II. I guess Ron Paul didn't qualify on that front, but Ron Paul just didn't look presidential. He just didn't. Same with Dennis Kucinich, another guy with great ideas. If Ron Paul had his ideas with Mitt Romney's appearance, right, and I think you could probably take Ron Paul's ears and stick them on Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney's got the weirdest ears ever. But if you had Ron Paul's policies with Mitt Romney's looks, now there is your presidential candidate. That guy would have stood a chance. But Ron didn't stand much of a chance, at least not then. Now, Ron Paul, well, if Ron Paul had inserted himself, or somebody like Ron Paul, well, there was a Ron Paul. It was Rand Paul who did run for president. A lot of people forget that. And I think Rand is kind of an interesting blend between his father and Republican conservatism. But, Rand is flawed too. I'd say he's probably one of the better people theoretically in the Senate. But it was Mr. Reality Show, because like it or not, or like him or not, Trump has charisma. And the networks were going to give him time. It wasn't like when Ron Paul was debating, they didn't really spend much time on him. He would be shown in the shots and wanted to marginalize him as much as possible. And Ron's got that interesting voice. He's got a voice where he talks like this. It's kind of high. It's got a little bit of a Texan. He doesn't command the room. Great ideas. Love his stance on war. Love his stance on the Fed. Doesn't command the room though. Anyway, so who do we have? We got Bernie, and we have Trump. We have Bloomberg, and I think Bloomberg is the wild card. I really do, and I think that with Saturn in late Capricorn, early Gemini. Remember, Bloomberg's Gemini. That this is an interesting time for Bloomberg. I remember when I first did Bloomberg's chart, I thought, this guy could actually be dangerous in an election. Then I did his chart again, and I was a little less convinced. Maybe I'll have another look at his chart. I won't be I won't be on the show on Friday night, or Sunday night, by the way. I'm going to be watching the Super Bowl, and we'll be back next Sunday. All right. So I did my takedown and trashing of Elizabeth Warren. It's bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre. Let's see. What else was happening with the coronavirus stuff? Oh, this is interesting now. China is boarding people into buildings. Let's check this out. Oh boy. This is getting very serious here. Let's just see this. And again, I'm grabbing this kind of real time. So I haven't really vetted this, but I'm just looking at sort of the headline here. Let's see what we have going. I'm going to play this for you. Here we go. So we're both seeing this for the first time. Here we go. Can you hear the people on the inside? It's a city of 11 million people, by the way. 11 million people.
Some 200 Americans have left the epicenter of China's coronavirus outbreak on a U.S. government-chartered flight. Hundreds of...
Pretty shocking video there. But it could all just be another hoax. And they're all just like hammering that all together. And you can hear the people screaming on cue from the inside of those structures. It's just a hoax. Don't worry about it. Just another SARS kind of a deal. And don't worry about it. And I'm not saying you should worry about it, but you should, wrap your head around the fact that this is happening and that you need to take care of yourself and you need to take care of your business. You need to care of your world around you. Yeah, and I'm going to give you some guidelines here. You're going to need, again, I'm not the preacher of doom, but you're going to need at least 2 to 3 months of food. Let's say nothing ever happens here. Let's say nothing happens. Having 2 to 3 months of food is actually a really good thing to do, a really good thing to have. Okay. Really good. Like you should have it. Water, you need to have enough water. And maybe water runs and comes out of your tap and everything. Well, that's cool, whatever. But it's always good to have some water on the side. And some of the supplements that we've been talking about, black seed oil, curcumin, which is turmeric. You want some turmeric, black seed oil. Um, what is it? Vitamin C, really good, high grade vitamin C, quercetin. These are things that can help keep your immune system up. Nanoxide, which I talked about. Also, if you want to get a really good high quality algae or a green superfood, that can be very helpful and very economical. So you need to have these things just in general. That's important, really important. And the other thing too is that when you're out and about, and this should be practiced anyway, is hygiene. And this is something that I'm really working on in terms of being in public. And I have a tendency to like touch my eye, or I have a mustache, and so sometimes it gets a little itchy up here, and I'll kind of go like this, and you don't want to do that in public, because if you're handling and touching public items, things that other people touch, you don't want to touch your face, and you just want to make that a rule of thumb anyway. You just don't want to touch your face. Period. End of story. And washing your hands is really important. Keep your hands sanitized. Keep your hands clean. Keep your body clean. It's really important at any point in time, but especially now, and especially if we're in public. So those are the three things. You need some pretty good supplements. Keep your immunity up. You'll need some extra food just to have it around, and in case you have to, bunker in, you're not going to be, kind of, left out in the cold, especially if things happen with the markets. And if you've been watching what's been happening with the Chinese markets, and I'm not talking about the stock market, I'm talking about where they go and buy their long bean or whatever, man, wiped out, wiped fucking out. So just, you need these things. You need to have these things. They're important. They're very important. Tether your camel first and then trust in God. That's how it goes. And lastly, around this, I'm going to shift into some of the Kanye stuff. Lastly, around this is that, let's say you do get sick, and even if it's like a heavy flu, and if there's a lot of heavy flu going around, you should probably stay away from hospitals to the best of your ability. And if you have to go somewhere, go to a place that has, the urgent care, the walk-up care where there's less people. You don't want to be around a lot of people when your immunity is down. So just keep that in mind and remember that. And this thing it's taking on a life of its own. Don't panic. Don't be afraid. Just take care of business, one foot in front of the other. That's where we are right now, and that's where we need to be. Okay, so I'm about to transition to some of the Kobe stuff, and let's see where you guys are at in Chatlandia. Nutrient-dense food, properly sourced. Shrimp, lobster. Oh, yeah. Corona beer. There you go. Got a lot of Corona jokes now. It's good to laugh when we're staring the bubonic plague in the face. No, I'm just kidding. Steve and Chris say, I recommend a salt inhaler to help decrud the lungs. There you go. Good. What else do we have? Let's see. I ordered a carbon mask just to have here. The thing with the masks is apparently the coronavirus is incredibly small. So it actually will sneak through on the micron level. It will sneak through the mask. What you want to be really conscious and aware of is your eyes. That's because apparently it will go through the eyes. So again, I'm not here to promote doom, but I'm just giving you some of the specs around these things. Let's see. CDC site reports. What do we have here? I just saw that. High pH foods. Yep. Jasper says, yeah, shrimp and fish. Yeah, Jasper, yeah, anything. Rosie, on the other hand, vapes, sea salt juices. Wonder if that, hey, Rob, nice to see you. Works the same. People are throwing pets off buildings in China. Bloomberg ruined New York City as soon as he came in and went to shit. He'll do the same thing to the United States. Guarantee you. More trauma for people by killing their pets. They think pets are spreading the virus, but it's just irrational fear. It went from understanding, let's see, does it transferring through the eyes gives us more insight as to the planetary influences? That's a really good question. So the head is where the mucoid membranes are. So whether it's the nose or the mouth or the eyes, and to a lesser extent the ears, they all represent the head. And currently Chiron is in the sign of Aries. So if we're looking at Aries as an astrological symbol to wrap our heads around and the wounded head, then yes, absolutely. We have an astrological marker for the potential orifices that, and this isn't just corona. This could be any virus. This could be influenza. It nests in the areas where there's the mucoid membrane, because you can touch all the coronavirus you want, but once you get it close to any of these places, that's where it enters the body. So Chiron and Aries in the wounded head. There you go. Do you know anything about Confucius? The institute's ran by Chinese government in many Western universities. Yeah, that's starting to happen now, isn't it? Our good friend Masaki's in the chat room. Yes, I've seen some of that, by the way. Did you hear what Tracy Twyman said about Bloomberg? Probably nothing good. Probably nothing good. And that's not an aspersion to Tracy. I just don't see anything good with Michael Bloomberg. What else do we have here? Cats. Yes, we just had cats, right? Some say this is a bioweapon that got into the wrong hands. Well, this is what I was talking about when there's a story. Let me see if I can find it. You track this down. Give me 1 second. So this is the story that I was referring to. I'll bring this up for you guys. This is an interesting kind of piece what Justin brought up. This is from iotwreport.com. And was the coronavirus developed in Canada and stolen by China? This is from the 23rd. So let's get into this a little bit. A researcher with ties to China was recently escorted out of the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg amid an RCMP investigation into what's being described as a possible policy breach. Dr. Jinggu Qi, her husband, Keting Cheng, and an unknown number of her students from China were removed from Canada's only level 4 lab on July 5th. Now, remember, the level 4 lab represents, the rating represents that level of the lab creating the most virulent strains known to man. Okay. And that's the level 4 lab was also in Wuhan. So let's read this. So level 4 virology lab is equipped to work with the most serious and deadly of human and animal diseases. That makes the Arlington Street Lab one of only a handful in North America capable of handling pathogens requiring the highest level of contaminants, such as Ebola. Security access for the couple and the Chinese students was revoked, according to sources who work at the lab and do not want to be identified because they fear consequences for speaking out. Sources say this comes several months after IT specialists for the NML entered Key's office after hours and replaced her computer. Her regular trips to China also started being denied. Coronavirus, Canadian-made pathogen weaponized and leaked by so this is interesting. The DGSI released details of the arrest, saying all men involved lived in the city of Brest. This is a French piece here. Interesting. Let's keep going. Iranian commander gunned down in front of his own home. Iranian Baj Forces commander Abu Hossein Mojadami was gunned down in front of his own home on Wednesday in the Khuzestan province of Iran. The Baj Forces, one of 5 forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, are often used to suppress protests. He was killed by 2 men wearing masks. So these are all related to, I guess, right around what was happening during that time. Canada's microbiology laboratory in Winnipeg has a sample of the new coronavirus that is causing infections in a number of countries, most notably Saudi Arabia. Oh, that's in 2015. Interesting. Scientific director Frank Plummer says the lab obtained the virus from the Erasmus Medical Center in Rotterdam, Netherlands. The Dutch lab was the one that first identified the new virus in June in a sample from a Saudi man who had died from mysterious illness. Plummer says the coronavirus arrived at the Winnipeg facility on May 4th. The lab is growing up stocks of the virus and will use it to assess diagnostic tests being used in Canada, he says. Interesting. A researcher with ties to China was recently escorted out of the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. We talked about this already. Keep going. There's level 4. So this theoretically could also be related to the origin of the virus. Now, China has been known to steal and pilfer trade secrets and technologies. Wouldn't be the first time. And there's also some weird stuff going on with Canada earlier this year or last year where they actually detained some Chinese women for a period of time. Now, this wasn't related to these people being escorted. I just, look, I don't know, man. If I was running the country, I'd be really, really, really thorough about who I would let work on really important shit. Of course, things are going to slip through the crack, but there's an angle. There's a potential angle there. All right, why don't I shift gears and let's get into some of the Kobe stuff and some of the things I've been working on with Kobe. And this is related to some of the stuff I'll be talking about is related to Kanye West and LeBron James. And we've already looked at the synastry between LeBron and and Kobe's chart. And one of the things that came across my screen on my desk was one of Tracy Twyman, speaking of Tracy, one of her dear friends and fellow researchers. So she's been sending me a few things. And one of the things that she sent me was this, which is quite interesting. And Tracy was working with this material. And it was the HBO series Carnival, which I think became is Carnival or Boardwalk. Anyway, let me read this to you. And this actually gets into the connection between LeBron and Kobe. So, series concept and background, Daniel Knopf. Before the beginning, after the great celestial war that rocked the very foundations of heaven and hell, God and Satan established an uneasy truce. Never again would they face each other in direct confrontation. By the way, that's Yahweh and Lucifer in the War of the Fallen Angels, which goes all the way back to Atlantis. Never again would they face each other in direct confrontation. So God created the earth, inhabiting it with the crafty ape he called man. And henceforth, each generation was born a creature of light and a creature of darkness. And they would gather to them men of ilk nature, and thus by proxy carry on the war between good and evil. So basically, they outsourced it. God and Satan outsourced the war between themselves, proxy wars. So it was that on the dawn of the final century of the second millennium, two creatures walked among men, more powerful than any that had preceded them. The dark one was named Lucius Crow. Through cunning and deceit, he became entrusted by LeBlanc, the very one to destroy him. When the time was right, Lucius struck down his enemy, sealing the greater measure of LeBlanc's power to augment his own. Vastly weakened, grievously wounded, LeBlanc dared to unburden himself of his birthright and live as a mortal. That's interesting, huh? His refuge was shattered when he heard Lucius, now known to the world as Brother Justin, preaching his venom through this new medium called radio. As LeBlanc, sounds a little bit like LeBron, doesn't it? Had foolishly neglected his duty, the Dark One had grown strong, although I think the Dark One is actually probably LBJ, amassing a great army of followers. Even when LeBlanc was whole and at the peak of his power, such an opponent would be formidable. In his current state, the battle would be lost before it began. So he sought out his small, brave band of disciples, the Cabal, that would later become known as Carnival. For many years, they wandered the heartland as spiritual renegades, helping the helpless, giving hope to the hopeless, cautiously nibbling at the edges of Brother Justin's blossoming darkness, traveling by night. They were perpetually hunted and harassed, often hungry, cold, and tired. Nevertheless, they persevered, praying for the day when the next in the ancient line of light would make himself known. Then they found a boy, Ben Hawkins. 17 years old, Hawkins was born to a bitter woman who shunned him for his power, branding as something wicked, repressed. It slumbered within him, long forgotten, until the day it was finally awakened by Carnival. As it uncoiled, so did his terror and self-loathing. Thus, the fate of mankind rested on the quivering shoulders of the most reluctant of saviors. The final battle began on the blasted landscape of the American Dust Bowl between the two great wars of the 20th century. It ended on a day of false sunset, the skies ablaze above Alamogordo, the desert in New Mexico, and the bomb was born, and man forever traded away wonder for reason. It's quite interesting, this concept. And what we have here, based on this kind of framework, is this odd, like, passing of torches, transformation, ritualistic transmission and transformation as well. And I focused on LeBron before, as LeBron became the heir apparent to Kobe, theoretically, in Los Angeles, who was the king of LA. LeBron was the king, but now, LeBron is the theoretical king, and his son right on Kobe's ascendant, which is an important thing to factor in and remember. Now, what I didn't get into a lot of is Kanye West. So I wanted to bring Kanye into the discussion here, because this gets into the kind of the, where Kanye is with his career and his whole Jesus trip now. He's gone from black to white, which is part of the Gemini program. So I'm going to play you a very unusual video. It was a commercial. Some of you have seen this, and if others have not, I'm gonna bring this up and be kind of blown away by it. So this is a Nike commercial, and notice here this is Kobe, and Kobe is shrouded in darkness, and this is almost like the scenario that was drawn up in the synopsis or Carnival, and instead of the Dust Bowl, the battle between so-called good and evil is taking place on a basketball court. So let's watch this together. Kobe wearing the symbol of Nike, Saturn, right here, just above the heart. Here we go. All right, let's back that up. So he's taking the ball, and who is the pilot of the bomb, or the pilot? I'm sorry, the pilot of the helicopter. It's Kanye. Here he is. You don't see it, but he's essentially climbing up the helicopter. It's a very fast frame inside of this. And then Kobe launches that. A river
So I shoot it in.
Black Mama doesn't end. Heroes come and go.
But legends are forever.
How about that for a little predictive programming? Heroes come and go, but legends are forever. What's really interesting here is you can actually see a being trapped in the flames. You see that right there? It could be a CGI. But this is also the Nike trademark or brand, the Ring of Saturn, emblazoned upon the what they call the blacktop, aka the basketball court. Let's watch that again. One more time.
So I shoot it in.
Black Mama doesn't end. Heroes come and go.
But legends are forever.
Legends are forever. So Kobe Bryant has now taken his place as an immortal one. There are players in the NBA now that are getting Kobe tattoos. And there's something about Kobe that in many ways reminds me of John the Baptist. Now, he doesn't have the John the Baptist kind of mentality or mindset or speaking truth to power, but John the Baptist is the precursor to Jesus, right? He's the one that baptizes Jesus. So John the Baptist has to die in order for Jesus to attain his role of the teacher and have a discipleship. So Kobe was very close to Kanye. And Kanye, of course, has done some bizarre and wild stuff lately. But more importantly now, Kanye has become a theoretically born-again hip-hop rapper. Like that's his new genre. And he's got an album out. It came out on October 25th. If you guys are not aware of it, let me see if I can find it here. There's some interesting rabbit holes we're going to go down. We did this. We did that. Where is it? Just had it up here. Okay, give me 1 second. We just shift gears here. Oh, Tommy Robinson's back in the news. Guess he's out of jail now. Okay. right. We got a Rosie sighting here. Yeah, I know, Rosie. I know. Let me throw this up here. So this is Kanye's new album, Jesus is King. So he went from being, oh, Rosie's part of the show. We'll say hi to Rosie. Say hi to everybody, Rosie. You got a lot of fan mail last time. Yes, you did. Okay. All right, here we go. Jesus is King, 9th studio album, number 9, by American rapper and producer Kanye West. It was released on October 25, 2019 through Good Music and distributed by Def Jam. The album follows a Christian theme, with West describing it as an expression of the gospel. West had formed his choir group Sunday Service in January 2019, performing gospel songs and covers of songs from his discography. Sunday Service performed the songs Water and Everything We Need. Jesus is King features guest appearances from Clips, Ty Dolla $ign, Kenny G. Is that the sax player, Kenny G? Fred Hammond, Ant Clemens and the Sunday Service Choir. Productions from West, Benny Blanco, Evax, Finilik, Inzak, Francis Starlight, Labyrinth, Mike Dean, Pierre Bourne, Ronnie J, Timbaland, and Wayne Campbell, among others. West quit taking medication for his bipolar disorder and began recording in August 2018, originally announcing the album as Yandi. The album missed 2 initial release dates, is September and November, under its original title before being delayed indefinitely. In August 2019, West's wife Kim Kardashian announced Yandi as Jesus is King, but it missed 2 planned release dates, late September 2019 under the new title. The final release, simultaneous with that of a concert film of the same name, Follow God, was released as the lead single in November 2019. So the album itself was released on October 25th. And this is kind of an interesting release date for the record. So there's a bunch of background material and stuff on it. Now, apparently, when Kanye was under lock and key after he had blown up at the concert in Sacramento, and they had him hospitalized. That's kind of like Kanye's missing time. Like, we don't know what happened to him during that time. And I think was he in Cedar Sinai? I think that's where he might have been. There's a fair amount of time where, the rumor was that he was going through electroshock therapy. And then there could have been some just massive reprogramming that was happening. And this whole thing could just be a new program. But bringing it back to Kobe. It feels like the two are synced up. And in fact, apparently Kanye had a vision of having an open church, which is what he's been doing. And that was apparently the vision for him was to do it in Calabasas. That's where the Kardashians live. They live in Calabasas. So it's not too far from home, but he had that vision. And again, theoretically, where did Kobe Bryant plunge to earth? It was in Calabasas. So there's this strange connection, this trinity with LeBron, Kobe, and Kanye. Now, I looked at the dates. Look, what was going on, or what goes on October 25th. And I found something interesting. And let me get back to WordPress here, and I'll show you guys. So October 25th is kind of a significant day in the Eastern Orthodox tradition. It's a day where they commemorate saints. Now, there are other days. There's the 24th, there's October 12th, because they have apparently sort of different timelines with their calendar. But October 25th seems to be a significant day on the commemorization. The schism and pre-schism, I guess that's when they had their own version of the Reformation. By the way, I believe if I'm not mistaken, that the historical Reformation is actually announced. So that will check that out for in a second. So these are all the saints that are essentially saints and martyrs that are honored on October 25th. Marcus Papias, Theodorus, Claudianus. This is kind of a different pantheon than, say, the Western commemorization of saints and sainthood, right? And we've got an audio issue. I guess I'm going outside of the. Okay, so stay with me here for a little bit as I get into the new audio. So we have a number of saints, Orthodox saints, that are commemorated on this day. And this is the day that Kanye released his record. If you've been following Kim Kardashian, yes, I know, thank you. Got the mic issue. I'm working on it. Second. Back here, give me a second. Testing 1, 2, should be fine now. Okay, let me get back to where I was going with this. So this is the day of the commemorization of saints in Eastern Orthodox. What has Kim Kardashian been doing? Kim has decided to return to her Orthodox Armenian roots. And this is from October 12th of 2019. So this is just 13 days, 2 weeks before Kanye's record's about to drop. None of this is by accident. So she goes to an Armenian cathedral. She doesn't go to Armenia. So an Armenian cathedral, and she gets her kids baptized. Thank you, Armenia, for such a memorable trip. I guess she goes to, there is no real Armenia anymore, is there? Isn't Armenia relocated to Los Angeles? So blessed to have been baptized along with my babies at Mother's See of Holy Echmiadzin, Armenia's main cathedral, which is sometimes referred to as the Vatican of the Armenian Apostolic Church. The church was built in 303 AD. Very beautiful pictures of Kim. She's still got the junk in the trunk. So here we go. There's her baby. Lighting the candles. Sacred. Kids getting baptized. Here we go. Man in the hood. He's like, what the fuck? What the fuck, mama? What is going on here? So Kim has made she's done this theoretical 180. And they're playing out this mythos, which is Kim, who obviously, Kim Kardashian came on the scene with a sex tape. That's where everybody found out about Kim Kardashian. She had a sex tape with that guy, Ray J, who now apparently has a headphone company. Anyway, as we've seen, the Kardashians and their constant interchange of male figures in their life, that their house has been a bit of
red light destination in a lot of ways. And there was even an episode of the Kardashians where Kim starts talking about, we need new energy, meaning men. We need different men. We need new energy. And Chris has always bought into this, kind of, how do I say this, Enochian, Masonic motif, black and white everywhere, the checkerboard square. You go into their house and it looks, vaguely like a sort of a Masonic temple. Vaguely, there are things inside. I've seen pictures. Now, there are people who have been saying for a very long time that Kris Kardashian is a high witch, and that's a coven. I really wouldn't have a problem with that. But there is a change now, right? Because Kim, who has been the harlot in a lot of ways, is now becoming chaste. And what role is she playing? She's playing the role of Mary Magdalene. This is the new role for Kim Kardashian to Kanye West Jesus. But there's something deeper going on here too. This is also a business move. And yes, their faith could be intertwined on some level, or it could be kind of the new thing in the next iteration, the recreation, the pivot, and the rebranding of the Kardashian / Kanye clan. But check this out. So this goes back to when Khloe and Lamar Odom were married. So apparently, the Kardashians and Kris founded their own church. Mel Gibson's got his own church right there. He's got a $68 million church, the Holy Family Chapel, heavily fortified, 17-acre compound, LA Agora Hills. Mel is listed as church CEO in federal tax records, and his last reported congregation number just 70 heavily screened worshipers. So let's just jump down to this. Primary business today with the church founded by reality spider plant Kris Jenner. So they founded their own church, mother of Kim Kardashian and all the other endlessly proliferating offshoots. Are you aware that such an establishment exists? It used to be called the Life Change Church, pivot, but recently rebranded as the California Community Church, the CCC, eventually, no doubt, to become the California Community Church. Very funny. Its AD year zero was 2009. 11. So they actually started this church 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And its services seem to be a movable feast, mostly held at the Sheraton Hotel in the Agora Hills, a location that obviously lends itself to idiosyncratic celebrity-founded churches. The establishment is fronted intriguingly by a formerly disgraced pastor called Brad Johnson, who was forced to resign from his last post after an adultery scandal and therefore opined regarding future ministry. No, can't see it, not qualified. Well, they picked him up off the streets and got him involved. So this is the foundation for the church that will wind up being created by Kanye, because it's already in place. It's already in place. They've already got the nonprofit status involved. So they've been working on this idea for the better part of 10 years now. And the release of the record coming out on basically the All Saints Day, or the remembrance of pre-schism and post-schism saints inside the Eastern Orthodox religion, is not a mistake. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the foundations of kind of a new religion in some ways. Now, I've been talking about the reset, and I've been talking about the reset for a while now. And I've been talking about the topographical reset, the financial reset, in the cultural reset. Now here comes, guess what? Another reset. This is the reset of, theoretically, whether or not they're going to pull this thing off is a whole other thing. The reset of Christianity. That Kanye is the new Jesus. He's the new Jesus. Kim is the new Mary Magdalene, and we're in some kind of twisted version of a Mandela effect, even though it's not really a Mandela effect, but it's along those lines. Let me show you Kanye's Jesus wear. You can buy this now. You can get merch here. So this is interesting. So they have, again, this is total Gemini style, the black and the white. And we have the crew neck here, and Jesus is king. And this is Kanye as an Orthodox Jesus. It's right in the same style of Kim's renewed faith and newfound religion. So Jesus is king. This is Kanye's Jesus. So Kanye is now taking on the role of Jesus. He's not the first one. I think Isaac Hayes did Black Jesus a long time ago. Earl of Pearl Monroe was known as Black Jesus. But this is very serious, and this is not something that's kind of helter-skelter or just kind of off the cuff. There's planning. Kris Jenner is a very cagey person, and seeing that they've had this church in place for 10 years now, seems to me that there's been some momentum building towards this. And when Kanye had his own schism, right? Because when he had a break, he had a schism, just like there was a schism inside of the Orthodox Church. Apparently it was time to rebrand everything. And I'm not saying that there couldn't be some kind of, divine thing going on there. The Lord works in mysterious ways, right? Reminded me of when Bill Schobelin, that guy who was apparently a high-ranking magus and eventually became born again, became a minister and all that stuff. And the way he got there was by, going into the Mormon church. Because he was told that if you wanted to get like the best stuff, the best, esoteric information, you go join the Mormon church. But as a kind of a angular relationship to the church, he actually wound up finding Jesus and God. So it didn't really work all the way, because there's kind of part of that inside the Mormon church. So I'm not saying that this is exactly like that, but it's very unusual and it's very strange. And it's also very strange that there are these predictive program models. Even when Kanye was in that other commercial and he's asking Kobe about his method, right? So in that moment, like, Kobe is the teacher and he's instructing the masses. He's instructing Tony Robbins. He's instructing Richard Branson that these are the disciples of Kobe. He's instructing Kanye. Well, he's not instructing Kanye anymore, at least not that we know of, right? So I wanted to go back and look at Schism Day. Let me bring the Schism Day back. Another really weird kind of sync, too, around this is that this is really strange. So there was another Bryant that died on January 26th, not in the year 2020, but in the year 1983, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And that Bryant was Bear Bryant. So there are two Bryant, who was a coach of Alabama. So there are two Bryants that theoretically died on the same day, different years. And what's odd about Bear Bryant is that, like Kobe, he is a Virgo, and he was born on 9/11, which is the day that I've had targeted for the birth of historical Jesus, right? So just another one of these odd syncs in some ways. Let me go back to that 23rd date. So I wanted to see if I was Um, the 25th, rather, my bad, 25th of October. That's when Kobe died. 25th. And same with Bear Bryant, same day. Let's see, what do we have here? What was it? No, it wasn't October 25th. It was January 26th. That's when Kobe died. My bad. Yes, Kobe died January 26th. And so did Bear Bryant. Same day. Same day. All right. Yeah, this is interesting, right? This is kind of interesting. Let me bring this up. So January 26th is the Council of Trent in 1564 and establishes an official distinction between Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. So what we have here is like, this demarcation or a schism again between one faith and another, and the Council of Trent says, okay, we distinguish between the two. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. This is the day that Kobe again theoretically dies. It's an interesting day in general. Some fascinating stuff that happens. The Apollo Theater reopens in Harlem in 1934 on this day. Let's see what else. There's some weird air traffic stuff too. Like in 2015, there was a crash at Los Llanos Air Base in Spain, killing 11 people. And then there was another air crash. Oh yeah, Flight 367 destroyed by a terrorist bomb. You know what else is really bizarre? Is that Smithsonian Channel right now is running a series on famous air disasters. It just started to run right around the time the helicopter went down to Calabasas. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean? Well, it seems to me that there is this occult rendering of a new religion, a new faith, vis-a-vis with Kanye, and the actual Kanye actually kind of assuming the mantle and the role of quote Jesus, with his former harlot wife, or wife former harlot in Kim Kardashian, now becoming this chaste and virginal companion, soulmate along his spiritual journey. But it also gets into this piece of the reset. And both, I believe, Kobe and Kanye and LeBron are all intertwined here. There's like a trinity. And with LeBron becoming the king of LA, and now Kanye, who played the role of the disciple to Kobe in the Nike commercial, now becomes the teacher. And then there's that bizarre kind of interchange between Kanye and Kobe. And what Kobe does in that commercial is he kills off that version of Kanye. And that version of Kanye that we know is Yeezus, which was his like black devil. He went through a whole black devil phase, total black devil phase. Remember, he's performing in those Saturnian cubes and stuff with Jay-Z and everything on the tour. So Kobe in that commercial kills off that version of Kanye. So now we have this new version of Kanye, who is now like Jesus. It's going to be interesting to watch. It seems to be very occulted in terms of its kind of ritualistic import. And then we have the whole Corona thing going on in the background as well. And Corona del Mar. And apparently there was a plane crash about a week before Kobe's crash, actually in Corona, California. So that's a whole, that's a whole other kind of narrative that's taking place. and the world and the sports world in particular is mourning Kobe, unlike kind of any other human I've seen in quite a long time. So there's a lot of loose generation happening there as well. So keep your eye on Kanye, keep your eye on the Kardashians, this kind of new version of Christianity that they're bringing forward, kind of this bizarre blend of Eastern Orthodox meets gospel meets hip hop, this new kind of syncretic faith, and how even when Kanye's album dropped, remember it was Kim who was saying when it was going to hit. It wasn't Kanye. And I know for a fact that Kim knew that that day was a day that was very important to the Eastern Orthodox faith, the veneration of saints. So, didn't even Kanye did a record called Saint Pablo as well, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, what a weird, wild, wonderful, wacky, multi-dimensional world we're living in, right? Let me check in with you guys. So we have Fallen Angels, Diamond Mess. I forgot because let's see what else we have here. New Faith, United Nations, Theosophy, NWO, New Age, UFO, Spiritual Teachings. There's some truth to that. Garden of Eden story, all about keeping men in slavery to his custodians, never learning about his true spirituality. Absolutely. Absolutely. Will there be a 3-day death hoax for Kanye someday? Maybe there'll be one for Kobe. I think Kanye did die though, right? I mean, when his career certainly died. When he was up on stage and he started to go crazy in Sacramento speaking truth, he was doing a lot of that, by the way. I think his programming was breaking down. That's what I think. His programming was breaking down. And then they had him essentially locked up. And that could be very close to like, Jesus' missing years or something like that. And then coming out of that and getting ready to preach the sermon, the gospel of Kanye. What else do we have? Kanye, disciple for one world religion. It could move in that direction. What about the Kobe helicopter crash cartoon? Yeah, there's another one there. There's another, people will say, well, that's all part of the plan. It's all part of the programming. It's all part of the predictive piece around Kobe and that he's alive, and we can see it all there. The numbers all add up. If you want to play with that model, you can. But if we go back and look at some of the stuff that was pre 9/11, like Natalie Merchant's song, like the album cover of The Coup, Party Time, where they're blowing up the Twin Towers. I mean, there was a lot of stuff pre 9/11 that was happening. You had, now I think the lone gunman stuff that Chris Carter put together, I think Chris Carter was in the know. I don't think the coup were in the know. I don't think they were telling the coup that those towers were going to blow up. I don't think the towers blowing up in Fight Club were part of the predictive programming model. I think that there are times where they are, and there are times where they're not. I don't think Natalie Merchant's song was about the predictive programming. And I don't think the Coup's album cover is predictive programming. But I do think, like, there's even that time where there's all these crazy kinds of pre 9/11 syncs. There's one in the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and they actually go into one of the towers, one of the Twin Towers, and when they go in there, the clock reads 9/11 in the film. You can see it and watch it. Some of this stuff tends to be quite Jungian in some ways, like there are archetypal themes when people tap into the collective unconscious, and you'll do it in your own life. There are times you'll be living out a certain mythos, or you'll have a whole series and sequences of high strange and symbols and times and dates that will really speak to you in a way that other moments don't. These are numinous moments, and they can be generated from the collective unconscious. It's sort of like how I think there was an example of James Joyce writing about something. I think it was about a boat crashing or something like that, and it actually happened in one of his books. I mean, this stuff happens, right? It happens. Time is very, very fluid, and when you get into the creative mindset, or kind of the dream time, which happens when you're in a creative reverie or something that takes place along that space, then things can emerge, and you may not even know, um, you know, what this means at the time that you're doing it. So yeah, predictive programming is part of the plan. You can see it in commercials all the time. Commercials are in the art of predictive programming. We're seeing that now. They're laying the tracks for Agenda 21. Remember yesterday I was talking about how public transportation is being, trumpeted. I saw a commercial last night where if you use your freaking American Express card and you use it for crosstown travel, you're going to get points. So again, this is kind of the Skinner box. They're rewarding people by using their freaking American Express card to travel across town. It's predictive programming. We see that. And there are other times when people drop into the collective unconscious. Now, I'm not saying that was the case with the Kobe cartoon. Maybe they were getting, messages like, "Hey man, you guys got to put this in your fucking cartoon because in the future this is going to happen, and you guys are going to be involved in some predictive programming, and it'll be cool, right? Just quiet, don't say anything." Like, does that happen? Yes, sometimes it does happen. And other times people are picking up on themes and they'll put them in their art and then to become these kind of flashpoints. So yeah, the helicopter there was, again, part of this ongoing kind of mythology, because now it becomes part of the mythology, doesn't it? Kobe moves from man to somebody who almost has his own religious assignation. Now Kobe has become a saint in kind of an unsaintly life in a lot of ways. But do you know what I'm talking about now? And now it becomes all part of the mythology. It's all part of the mythology now, especially the end game or the end time mythology for Kobe. But I think that there's something here, certainly with Kanye and Kobe, so that now Kanye has, Kobe is like Kanye's John the Baptist, right? He's up doing that Nike commercial with the Kobe system. And now Kanye, who's the disciple, is no longer the disciple. Kanye is now the teacher, playing the role of Jesus or Black Jesus. Okay, I think that's about it for today. Let's see, what else do we have here? Based on commercials, would you think the U.S. was 50% Black? No, based on commercials, I would think that the U.S. is probably 90% Black, about 10% any other ethnic persuasion, as they say. And I'm not being racist. I watch TV. And so, where'd all the white people go? Where'd all the white people go? Where'd all the blondes go? Now they're redheads, which I've spoken about many times. Let's see. Jung was the client. Yes, the scarab. It's a great. Well, that's how synchronicity was born. We talked about this when I did a course earlier last year. And so Jung was working with a woman who was recounting a dream that she had with a scarab and a beetle, right? And while Jung was actually listening to her, working with her, he saw on the window a scarab and a beetle, which was extremely far away from its North African point of origination. So this is when the concept of synchronicity came into Jung's mind. What's also interesting is that a lot of people don't know, and again, bringing the beetle synchronicity into the inside joke, is that Carl Jung is on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So he's one of the cast of characters there. And there's a play on kind of the word beetle, right? Because somebody knew that that's where Jung got his idea of synchronicity from. So they're going to, again, put him on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, generally regarded as one of the best albums by the Beatles. So there we go. Absolutely. Okay. I think I'm ready to bug out of here. How's that? How's that for a little pun? Get it? Beetle, bug out of here. I won't be back Sunday. I will be back on Monday, Tuesday. I'll be back Tuesday. And more 15 Minutes of Flame. We'll do more updates on Corona. And Steve and Chris, it's Steve and Chris time for next Friday. I know you guys love Steve and Chris. They'll be back next Friday and working on some guests moving forward for the next few weeks. And thank you for everybody who subscribed so far. If you haven't, you can go over to my robertphoenix.com page. I got different levels and different tiers. You can check that out there. And let's see, what else? Oh, there's something else. What was it? Oh yeah, the webinar. If you bought my course in the last 6 months, shoot me an email. I'm gonna have a webinar. You got to have Zoom, right? Everybody that shoots me an email, I'll invite you. I think I'm gonna cap it maybe around 40. We'll see what happens. And if you are not going to be part of this Saturday's webinar, you can be part of next Saturday's webinar. And it doesn't mean you can't be part of next Saturday's webinar too. Okay, I'm not gonna be that stingy. I'm not gonna be Popo the Clown. If some of you who follow what I do here, you'll know the story of Popo the Clown. Use your head right here, boys and girls. Discern what's real. Your heart. Stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thanks for being part of today's show. And have yourself a good weekend. And go for the news.